From the East Coast to the West Coast, we are everywhere true crime is. We are asking for the public's help. We are searching in the woods. We are doing what it takes here on the Bullhorn Betty channels to find answers to the most alarming cases we have been watching on the news. I can tell you personally that I have traveled this entire country seeking these answers and bringing that content right here to you here on the Bullhorn Betty channels and Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. We are happy with the work that we've done. We brought many answers to the public, and we have defied mainstream media in our pursuit of the truth in these cases. We will continue to work, we will continue to fight for these victims, and we will continue to tell their stories here on my channels. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty brand of channels and the Coffee Club. Thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and more importantly, thank you for allowing me to bring these victims' stories to each and every one of you, advocating for each of these victims. God bless you. God bless America, and more importantly, God bless our victims. Hey guys, Bullhorn Betty here, Bullhorn Betty. We've been covering the case of Sebastian Rogers for quite some time. We have just been wanting to know where in the world is Sebastian Rogers. He's a 15-year-old autistic boy that disappeared from his home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and hasn't been seen or heard from since. He's been missing for almost 7 months. 7 months, and not a video, not a scent, nothing that determines that he left his home. Before we get into that, I just wanted to go over my day. We had the electrician here, the plumber here. I got a little sticker shock. I still have a clog, which sucks. And so I've got to go to another remedy. It's going to be a little more costly, so I'm going to try a few things first. And that is what we call life. Life it is. Life it is. So I can't wash laundry. I can't run the dishwasher. I have a little bit of area with a slow drain, and it sounds like it is almost out to the road where the clog is. So it kind of sucks just a little bit for me, to say the least, right now. Yesterday I had court with a terrible individual. Many of you guys don't know her on this platform. You guys are lucky. But I am in the throes of a lawsuit with a content creator on YouTube. And so the court case went really well yesterday, in my opinion, at least for me. And that's kind of where we sit right now as far as life. But when we get back to Sebastian Rogers, a few things that we need to know. We're right now going from the very beginning of this case to the current time. Right now we're at about March 7th, okay? So we started at February 26th. Many of us weren't involved in this case. We learned about what was going on the grounds. You know, they were very concerned. At the time that this was going on, they thought they had a missing teenager that walked out of his home. They were moving heaven and earth, playing songs, anything and everything to allow Sebastian to know that they were looking for them and they were there to help. It's nice to see you, Mary Lewis from Kentucky. God bless you. Thank you for being here. And so within about 72 hours, you could see a differing of law enforcement. They started asking for, footage past the date of his disappearance. They wanted to see what was going on the day before, earlier in the day. So they started requesting all this stuff. They started asking their community to check all outhouses, buildings, properties, fence lines, anything and everything that they could, day and night, to check twice a day, in the morning and at night, and to report if there was anything disturbed, anything missing, to look in crevices, holes, covered boats, refrigerators, you name it. They wanted people to go through that stuff morning and night and report any changes. Then we move forward and we start getting into where they start scaling back the searches. And this is when the parents, the mom and the stepfather, started going out and trying to be a little more public with the community as this started entering into a criminal investigation phase. And about this time is when they went out to the landfill. We went over 3 major interviews that they had provided thus far. And one was on 3-3 for the Dutchess interview. One was on 3-4 with WSMV, and one was on 3-6 with Fox 17 out there in that area. There were a few takeaways from those interviews. One is no mention of Sebastian taking out the garbage, no mention of driving the community or going to a school, no mention of the thud, no mention of any other people other than the mom and the son being together the day before, and they had a really great day. That was what was put out in the very first 3 interviews. Obviously, that is not the story we're hearing this day about what happened to Sebastian Waindrake Rogers. I hope you guys come over to the YouTube channel and come over to our podcast, where we start breaking down these cases and we start talking about the interviews. We just covered today the Hands interview. This is their 3rd interview. So how it went is Dutchess had them on her channel on March 3rd, which I believe is what I refer to as the dry run before the major interview the very next night. They did not show their face. Then they showed their face on the WSMV interview. And then the next interview, 2 or 3 days later, they refused to have their face on TV yet again. And the Hands interview is what we dub it because they videotaped their hands. The only other live visual that we got of the mother and the stepfather is in the Chronicles of Olivia interview of March 18th. We're not going to be getting to that for a few days because we're going through all of the articles. We're going through every single factual information that we have related to this case, and we're doing that for a very specific reason. We want to make sure everybody has the true facts of this case because there's such a misinformation and disinformation campaign to get people off the facts of the case. The bottom line is this child was with his mother the day before. This child came home. It is very vague on what happened from this child getting home around 6:30 to the time he went to bed at 9. Also in the Hands interview, his bedtime expanded. So we were told that Sebastian went to bed at 9 o'clock at night on Dutch's interview and the Green Shirt interview with WSMV. However, by the time it got to the Hands interview just a few days later, she allowed him to stay up a little bit longer. I've never heard that variation other than in this particular interview. So we'll see how that changes because right now he went to bed at 9 o'clock. That's the story that is now the one that we originally heard and now where it's gotten back to. I don't know what happened with him staying up a little later than normal, which is what came about in the Hands interview. So it's starting to get a little convoluted. We're starting to see very clearly where it's getting convoluted at. Thank you, brown-eyed girl. Where it's getting convoluted at, and it's this story, and it's the stretch from the 25th to the morning of the 26th. That right there keeps changing, and it's different variations. It's things that they did the day before. You know, the night before, on just about every single one of those interviews, according to the mother, Sebastian came home from the Texas Roadhouse Grill and went into his room to play. And around 9 o'clock, she says, you need to go to bed. He says, okay, good night, Mom. Good night, puppies. And went to bed with not a problem. That's what's being said. But we also heard in other interviews that we haven't gotten back around to just yet, where it is noticeable. I think it was the stepfather that stated that that he gets very frustrated and has meltdowns when he's over stimulated. And many people believe that that Sunday, the 25th, was overstimulated. He had a busy day in the morning. He went to go pick up a cousin, went to BJ's, got snacks, came home, went to the video arcades, and went out to something to eat, and some other things that must have gone on during that day, because nobody else knows what happened that day. He just went to a few places and stayed at home, apparently. We don't know if he brushed his teeth to go to bed. We know nothing. We heard from the Nancy Grace, which we haven't yet gotten to yet, but we do know that the Nancy Grace interview, the mom specifically stated that she gets up at 6 a.m. She specifically stated in these 3 interviews that she went to his room. He was not there. She panicked. She looked around the house. She immediately called the stepfather. Within a few minutes, they notified law enforcement, and the cavalry came. We know that today that's not the same story we have. We know today that the allegations, or that the statements of the mom, is that she actually left the house to go look for him. I'm interested to find out when this happened, and I believe we're going to find out that change happened on March 18th in the Chronicles of Olivia interview. So many people think that we are just picking on a family, which couldn't be further from the truth. Nobody wants to look at any type of mom or stepdad in the lens that we're looking at them in. But we also know statistics. By the way, I did bring up some statistics in today's show on YouTube. And the statistics I'll read it here because you guys haven't, and they won't mind hearing them again, and some people haven't heard everything. So give me just a minute. It was pretty alarming. No, I think I said moms. Moms. I can't find it. It was like right at the front, but it was statistics, and I can't find it here. And it was from a well-known, but you're gonna have to go back and statistics. Hold on, let me get back. Statistics. Here it is, right here. This is what I read. So this is where it's alarming for most. Recent research indicates that children with autism are at increased risk of maltreatment. We examine news media reports on homicide incidences involving underage with autism as victims in the United States between 2000 and 2019, and this is published from the National Library of Medicine. National Library of Medicine. This is a published study, and it states that they did this from 2000 to 2019, and there was 52 victims, underage victims of homicide, and of those, 90% were male. So of the victims, 90% were male. The other less than 10% were female. And the ages of victims ranged from 2 years old to 20 years old. And the parents and caregivers, this is astonishing, accounted for 63.5% of the predators, respectively. The leading injury mechanism was a pew-pew at 23.1%, followed by drowning. That means the parent pew-pewed them or drowned them. That drowning is 19.2%, and suffocation, strangulation, or asphyxiation was also 19.2%. The most commonly cited contributing factor, a whopping 47%, was overwhelming stress from caring for the autistic child. Those are alarming statistics when it comes to parents and autistic children. And obviously, things get heated with the pew-pews being a whopping 23% of the method the parent has used. So again, alarming statistics. This is why we've been focusing heavily on this case and focusing on the last person that saw this child. Now, if the shoe was on the other foot and Seth was the last one to see this child instead of being at work, naturally we would be looking at him. But that's not the case. The case is that the stories keep changing. That was one of the purposes of going through this series and taking us back to the beginning of this case when many of us were not even involved in this case, to listen to the fine details happening on the ground as they're searching for this missing child. So we're here 7 months later, still searching for this young man, and with a litany of statements from the stepfather saying, we will never find him. This is a little concerning for me. This is a little concerning for my audience here on TikTok. This is very concerning for my audience on YouTube. And we're still trying to keep his face and name out there and remind people that there's a $100,000 reward for any information that brings this case to a close. Whether we find him, whether you have information that brings him home, either safe and sound or otherwise, and for those responsible going to jail. Because let's face it, something like this just doesn't happen. Children don't just vanish. And this child was very much sheltered in a very strict home where CPS has been called multiple times. We've heard from neighbors, and it's been corroborated by others, that it was heard out there in their front yard, the stepfather demanding from the mother, it's either him or me, as the stepfather reaches out to the biological father, Seth Rogers, to have him take his son, citing marital problems that they're not working out until he's out of the home. These are what we in the biz call red flags. This proves that there is some type of hostile dynamic going on inside that home prior to him disappearing. This also shows strange lights on the outside of his house hours before he was reported missing. These are things that aren't, common in missing person cases. When parents start changing their story and things are being left out and then things are being added, then things are being removed. These are things that we in the biz call red flags. And that's what we're approaching here. Do I want to be mean to a family? Of course not. That's not anybody's motivation in this. But we also have brains, we have common sense, and we have facts that don't bode with what's coming out of the mom and stepfather's mouths. And that is always going to be very, very problematic for all of us to overcome as we're discussing this case. As many of you guys know, I have my personal viewpoints and my personal feelings as to what happened to this child. I believe he's part of the 19.2% because, as I've stated, I thought asphyxiation would be some part of this particular case And the reason for it is because the last photo of him was on February 24th. That was the Saturday, and they were at Costco's, and I can see a clear thumbprint on his Adam's apple in that photo. And we know the stepdad has not been home since the beginning, or since the ending of January. So many people have also speculated that it's possible that the Department of Children and Family Services may have asked him not to be there or come there, which would bring another layer of suspicion as to why this child is missing, if even the stepfather was unable to go home, you know? And how hostile would that environment be where a father would not be able to come to his own residence, you know, during the weekends and other things? I don't know if that's true. You know, obviously, when it comes to the Department of Children and Family Services, many people can say whatever they want about it because most of those records are confidential, and we'll never have those records. We'll never get access to those records unless they're produced in some type of trial and produced as discovery. That would be the only time the public will have a little peek into these CPS type of reports. I did hear a while ago that whoever was handling this case is no longer with the Department of Children and Family Services out there. But again, you know, I can only say that those statements are speculative in nature. We know that there's reports because Seth has indicated that there are reports and that were multiple visits at the house, and that his son in those reports said the only place he feels safe is at his father's house. Those things we do know that are in the reports because those were the limited things that Seth released from the reports. However, he would not release how many times they went to the house, what was stated that was done to Sebastian to trigger these CPS activity at their home. So we don't really know a whole lot about that, other than we know that there are reports that exist. We just don't know what's in them. So, but again, it does show a level of hostility inside the house, because how many times we all have kids, you know, I had stepchildren, and they, you know, pushed me sometimes to my breaking point, you know, and so we all have, you know, arguments or disagreements or things like that, whether you're a blended family or they're your children. But how often do we have the Department of Children and Family Services knocking on our door? I mean, I had in some parts, you know, my stepdaughter wasn't the easiest person to get along with. You know, she was young, she had children, and she still wanted to be young. And it's like you gave that up when you know, kind of had kids. You know, we're not built-in babysitters. You know, we have a life too. You tell me you're going to be here at 9 o'clock at night. I don't want you showing up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You get my drift? So we all have our own disagreements inside of our home, whether our family's blended or not blended. And I have never, in the history of my stepchildren or my grandchildren, ever had the Department of Children and Family Services knocking on my door. So we have to think about our own lives and our own situation, and, you know, the kind of arguments our family has gotten into, whether we want to publicize them or not. We all know in our hearts and souls that we have disagreements with our families and our children. How many times have you guys got knocks at the door from the Department of Children and Family Services? I'm sure that in some areas, a few of you guys have. I know I have a subscriber on my other channel that fills me in on, you know, how she's trying to get her children back and stuff like that. And I'm always so pleased to hear those, especially when I find out people are in recovery and stuff like that. They're really putting their children first and really trying to take a bite out of life and do the right thing. I always welcome those types of messages because they're music to my ear. Not everybody's perfect. Some of us have a little bit of a bumpier path than others, you know, and it's how the people get through them that matter to me. And when they're busting their butt and realizing their faults, I always want to empower them to keep going, because there's always got to be a day one, right? A day one to the rest of your life. And until you make that leap or, start making those changes, you're never going to get to the path that you want, right? So I do expect some of you guys to have the Department of Children and Family Services, and I don't look down upon that. But how often do you have them there multiple times? How often? It just seems like there's a level of hostility and dysfunction going on behind the closed doors, just with the allegations, not necessarily knowing what they are. So we have to look at that. Again, not trying to be mean, but we are a realistic show here, and we talk about uncomfortable things, and we always, always, always try to look at the right side of things. But when something's stinking to high heaven, me trying to convince my audience that it's not stinking to high heaven, I'm manipulating my own audience. That's when people start driving the narrative. I'm not trying to drive the narrative that the mom or stepdad had anything to do with it. I'm just saying common sense says they have a lot more information than they're stating. Why? Because of all the red flags. Okay? Because of all the overwhelming amount of red flags. If this amount of red flags was over here on Seth's side, you bet your bottom dollar we would be focusing over here on Seth's side. Okay? But that is not where the issues lie. It's over here. It's over here. We've got people running away, going to different states in the middle of search efforts, shopping for motorcycles, going out to eat when they just told a whole crew of 100 people searching for their child, you can't leave the home. Law enforcement told you not to leave the home. Order your stinking food in. If you can't go out there and search with 100 people out there that don't know you from Adam, but out there searching for your kid, you get your butt off the couch and you go out there and help. Show you actually have some scruples. But we didn't get none of that. We got shame on us for thinking this way. Well, even after all of this, even after an arrest, guess what? I still think the same darn way. Something doesn't smell right, and we speak the truth. I don't need somebody pumping into every little fact. We can see the facts on the news. We can see the progression of this case. What is going on? We've got a set, and I just went over another interview, Fox 17, where they want everybody to go out there and post flyers and keep his name out there and please keep searching and keep searching. Okay, well, when people come out to help search, they get serpentine belts cut, they get tires popped, they get harassed, they get death threats. Oh, and by the way, they get thrown in jail too when they've committed 0 crimes. It seems to me that there is an element that's trying to do everything in the world to act like they want searches in their son's name in the news and everything. But then on the flip side, behind the curtains, when the line lights are off, when the camera shuts off, they're doing dirty deeds to keep anybody from searching for their child. They don't want to participate. They want to clam up. No comment, no comment, no comment, no comment, no help, no out there in the woods, no nothing. Oh, but by the way, let me throw $1,000 over to this criminal channel that stalks people and wants to punch other creators in the face for them. But hey, that's not a payoff. That's only for billboards, don't you know? Only for billboards. Nothing to see over here. Nothing to see over here. We do want to find Sebastian. But finding Sebastian means the people that were last seen with him stepping up to the plate and saying what happened. And that I don't think we're ever going to have happen. So you know what it's our responsibility to do? To get out there and keep searching for him. Because he's somewhere. And although the stepdad doesn't believe we can find him, nobody will ever find him as he's gloating, we can. We will. And you know what? How we do it is you, me, this, and taking and spreading this. That's how we bring him home. People that can get out in the water in and around that area, pay close attention to bridges that have water under them, and go a few times. If you got a sonar and side imaging, go pass under them a few extra times on your way to your area, to your favorite watering hole or fishing spot. You know? All right, guys. Well, I know you guys haven't seen me much. That's really all I have to say today. Everything's kind of, you know, it's life. It's life. So hopefully say a prayer for me and my plumbing. Tomorrow I should be getting some chemicals in that I'm told to try before I go and spend $2,000. I about fell over. Holy crap. Bullhorn Betty needs to become a plumber. I'm just saying. So say a prayer for me, okay? We're going to try some chemicals down the drain to see if they're going to relieve my issues so I don't have to pay all this money. Say a prayer. We got court coming out of our butts. We got, you know, all this stuff. It's just like, it's enough. I need prayers. We need something good going on. I feel it. I feel like if we manifest good, I feel like, you know, this is going to work. We just got to keep our fingers crossed. I just feel it. I feel it in my blood. Because I about had a heart attack this afternoon. So I know anything's got to work besides me being on the floor. Don't forget, guys, Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, please, please, please pass his name around. I'm praying that the crazy people on this platform start getting it together and start talking about Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers and, you know, all of the reasons why they feel the way they feel without, you know, bashing other creators, insulting. You know, when you go to insulting other creators, you've lost the argument, okay? You really have. You know, I say things off cuff, but I don't go after them. Like I'll call, you know, who... I won't body shame today. I'm in kind of a, you know, good but not so good mood. So there is that. But anyways, guys, I just want to tell you I appreciate your time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain why I feel. And I think I kind of embody a lot of people's feelings. And I really do. That's one of the specialties I have, is saying what everybody's thinking, you know. And I'm going to keep doing that. If people are offended by my commentary, you don't have to watch. I just want to remind everybody you have choices, right? We all have choices. I woke up today and decided to call an electrician and plumber, and boy, I don't like the choices. But we all have them. So you guys have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Rock it out with your coffee beans out. Don't forget to be fearless. If you see something, say something, because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Until next time, please be safe, but more importantly, please be kind to one another. God bless.